Hey, hello, and welcome to the Informative Talk Show. I'm Cap. Joining with me today is Puppy
Hi.
and Miss B.
Hello.
And today we will be talking about disabilities and how to live with them. Each week we will come up with a different disability, or not disability, but topic to talk about. Maybe disability, may not. So the topic for today will range anywhere from autism all the way down to PTSD. So, starting off, we will talk about PTSD and how to live with it. Basically, PTSD stands for post traumatic stress disorder. Most people that are diagnosed with this have are diagnosed with it because they have a traumatic event that happened in the past, or they're a soldier that and they experienced war. Different ways that I have seen people live with it is some people will get a caregiver, some people will get a PTSD dog, which helps alert them when they're about to have a panic attack so that they can calm down. Some get both. All all forms There are multiple forms of PTSD, including something called CPTSD or complex PTSD. And that means that you've had more than one traumatic experience or more than one event that has affected your life. Some people will get a combination of a helper and a walk dog, a helping dog. For those that are injured that have PTSD, they get a specialty helping dog that does PTSD and helps them pick things up off the floor, turn off lights, retrieve things. Um, then there is the when it comes to PTSD, there's more than one disability that actually is associated with it. Another There's anxiety is also common with it, which is what causes the panic attacks. Some get depressed. So, but the main factor that all people with PTSD have is something traumatic has happened. The next disability I want to talk about is anxiety, which I was just discussing. Anxiety can be many different things. It doesn't just have to be a panic attack. It can be as simple as tapping your fingers repeatedly or picking up and putting down a pencil. A panic, uh, uh, or like I'm doing, stuttering. Anxiety is always different for different people. And unfortunately, the only known way to treat it fully is with medication. There are other ways to treat it, like I listen to music, I'll do a grounding technique. There are fixes, but it's something you'll always live with. You're never going to be without this disability. And most people that have anxiety have to either take a pill or learn grounding techniques or their triggers, because everyone that has a disability has anxiety, has a trigger. And sometimes you have more than one. And they can be as simple as a flash of light or as complex as a loud noise. But So most people, to avoid having to take the medicine or to avoid having to use the techniques that have learned to calm down, avoid the triggers. Um, the final topic that I'm gonna target right now is depression. It comes in many forms, but the most common is sadness. You can do, and just like anxiety, the only way to truly treat it is through medication. It's because there's a chemical imbalance in your brain. So you need that chemical imbalance balanced back out in order to feel better. Most people that live with depression can live by themselves as long as they remember to take the meds. However, I have seen some cases where someone has has a caregiver or someone to remind them via text, via phone call to take their meds because they are forgetful. Depression isn't always just sadness. It can be it can include anxiety. It can include loss of interest in activities. It can even include loss of interest in just daily living. Sorry about that, guys. But the hardest part about living with depression, I have to say from personal experience, is when I forget to take my medicine, is the loss of interest because then you're just bored all day. Nothing interests you to where you're just sitting there doing hundreds of things, just trying to stay entertained. And that about covers my topics for this podcast. Now I'm going to hand it over to Puppy so she can discuss hers.
Hi. I was I'm going to discuss AUDHD, but first I wanted to talk about the different parts of it. So AUDHD is a non-official term for someone who has a diagnosis of autism and a diagnosis of ADHD. So first, let's talk about autism. Autism is a spectrum, but what that means is that it doesn't slide up and down. The spectrum works. It's not like different severities of autism. You can't have one person who's more has a more severe autism than another person. No, we talk about people having autism having high functioning autism or debilitating autism. That's not the case at all. It's a different combination of of mental disorders that cause causes you to act not typically of not neurotypically. There's like a lot of different ways that you can look at the spectrum. I have an article pulled up on Neuroclastic about the autism spectrum, and there are a lot of different aspects that go into autism. There's pragmatic language, social awareness, monotropic mindset, information processing, sensory processing, repetitive behaviors, and neuromotor differences. And these all group together to form someone to form someone's autism. So they don't have to have all of these behaviors. But having one of these behaviors doesn't mean they have autism. It just means they have a disability in that one area. Having all of them could mean that you have autism, but you don't have to have all of them to have autism. You have to have three or more to have autism, to be considered to have autism. So, for example, you can have someone who is really good at pragmatic language, but is really bad at information processing. Or you can have someone who has very bad neuromotor differences. So their body won't like listen to their mind, but they're very, very good at pragmatic language and social awareness, which you and which you wouldn't think of someone with autism having. And because you whenever you think of someone with autism, you think of someone who can't interact socially, but that's not the case. Because a lot of autistic people do have the social awareness and ability to talk with people, but their body or their sensory processing gives them a disability when trying to interact with other people. um and so l- looking at the symptoms, it has symptoms between like doing stims or um being someone's eyes, or do be like to touch or wanting to touch, which I know when you think of autistic people, you think of them not wanting to touch people. Some do want to touch people. That's what I'm different from person to person. Looking at the other part of AUDHD is ADHD. What does ADHD stand for? It stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. And what this means is that your mind gets addled super easily when trying to work from one task to another, often skipping steps or jumping from task to task without completing them. And it makes living daily life really hard. I'm sure you've seen it on social media of some people putting examples, but I'll say an example right now. For example, if you were drinking a bottle of water, walking through your house, and then you see a mess that you want to clean up, you'll put down your bottle of water on a shelf and you'll go clean up the mess. But while you're cleaning up the mess, you'll be thinking to back earlier in the day and you're like, "Oh, right, I had to go get the mail." So you'll stop cleaning your mess. Oops, sorry. So you'll stop cleaning your mess and then you'll go get the mail. And then once you get back from the mail, you'll be like, "Oh, I'm kind of hungry." So you'll put down your mail on the table and you'll go eat food. And what you've just done is you've left water on the shelf, which will condensate. You've left the mess that you were trying to clean up, and you've put your mail down on the table, not looking at it. And you went to go eat food, and oftentimes, when trying to make food, you'll open a fridge to get something, and maybe you'll remember to close the fridge, maybe you won't. But then you'll make your food and you'll sit down to eat it, but you'll forget to put up what you used to make the food. So it's really difficult to try and live with ADHD, and we have to really focus on what we're trying to do and be like, instead of being like, "Oh, I have to go get the mail," and put down the stuff that we're doing, we have to be like, "Oh, I have to go get the mail, but wait, I'm doing this. I need to do this first." And then sometimes when you do that, you'll forget that you have to go get the mail. So, what does it mean to have autism and ADHD together in AUDHD? So, it's often described as a very exciting and debilitating way of living, because oftentimes you can like have a tug of war of trying to balance the constant swirl of thoughts that ADHD is, but your autism is screaming at you, "Oh my god, I'm overwhelmed. Please stop this." And so it's like a war between these two uh disorders that are fighting against each other, and makes it sometimes really fun to live because we're like, oh my god, so many exciting new things to focus on, but also really hard to live because it's, oh my god, so many things to focus on. You know, I'm not explaining this very well. I don't claim to be a professional in these, but that's my views on AUDHD. And like, to give some examples of how I I live with that. Uh like when I get super overwhelmed because my thoughts are spinning, I'll try and go through and focus all of my thoughts on one singular thing, which I often use like Podfix on Spotify to help, or I'll focus on a task I know I enjoy, like painting. Um, to help with my ADHD, I try to have checklists of things I need to do so I can always go back to look at my checklist to be like, did I do that? Did I do that? Did I do that? And get things I need to get done actually done. Or add new things to the checklist when I think of them, and that way I won't forget about them later. Or and some ways I live with my autism, separate from like my ADHD, is I use a weighted blanket to help me feel pressured, because I like the feeling of pressure on my body. It helps me feel comfortable and safe. Um, and I use fidget toys, which I also use fidget toys for another thing I have, which is autophagia. Now, I'm sure many of you haven't heard of autophagia, which is completely fine. Um, it's it's not rare, but the people like to make you think it's rare. You might get it confused with autophagy, which is the process of cells self-destructing, which you might have learned about in biology. But autophagia is different. It's a self-injurious behavior where you bite at your own body. And it's often a symptom of anxiety, or sometimes people with dementia or strokes will bite at their own body. But that's not all it is, because autophagia can be as simple as biting your nails, which not really uncommon. A lot of people bite their nails. It's also common, also trichotillomania, which is pulling on your hair, a body focused repetitive behavior, is a form of autophagia, especially when you eat it, which is called trichophagia. So autophagia is like an umbrella term for that specific. So if you pull on your hair, if you eat it, if you bite on your nails or your cuticles, which I know a lot of people do, so it's not rare like people try to make you think. Um there are rare cases of extreme autophagia though, where people have in some cases had to be amputated because of how damaging they've been to their own bodies. But that's not the case with most people. It's just biting on your fingers, on your cuticles, or on like any loose skins that you can find, which I know it doesn't sound great. And so something to do to help with that is I have this little fidget toy that has some spikes on it. So if I ever feel the urge to bite on my fingers, I can instead squeeze this toy, and it will give the same pain without the permanence of that injury. And I think that's all I want to say, so I'm going to pass this on to Miss B to talk about her disorders.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to talk about my disability, which is spina bifida hydrocephalus. Okay, spina bifida, in my case, personal experience, runs in my family. My mother's older sister, Denise, was born with spina bifida. I'm not going to go into the whole detail of it because it's a sad story and I will start crying. Uh, but What spina bifida hydrocephalus really is, it is a complex condition where a birth defect of the spine, spina bifida, causes an accumulation of excess fluid in the brain, hydrocephalus. In 80 to 90% of several spina bifida cases, myo, I can't speak today. I'm sorry, everybody.
Myelomeningocele.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Cap.
You're
Structure,
welcome.
structural brain changes such as Chiari, malformation, malformation, prevented fluid damage, resulting in increased pressure of the brain. Uh, Key aspects of spina bifida, hydrocephalus. Connection to spina bifida is heavily associated with myelomeningocele, the most severe type of spina bifida where the spinal cord protrudes through an opening in the back. Cause of fluid buildup. The spinal defect causes a Chiari malformation where parts of the brain are pulled down into the upper spinal cord, blocking the normal flow of cerebral spinal fluid, CSF. It is usually managed by neurosurgery, often requiring the insertion of a shunt, a tube that drains excess fluid from the brain to the abdomen. Complications. If untreated, it can cause severe disability, intellectual impairment, or even death. Symptoms and management of hydrocephalus include a rapidly increasing head circumference, headaches, vomiting, seizures, vision issues, treatment, ongoing and often involves monitoring by a managed team of specialists to manage both the spinal issues and the shunt. Um, so I have had spina bifida since birth. I am. There are spina bifida patients in this world that are not using a wheelchair, which in that case, their spina bifida has been fixed.
It's
Uh,
known as spina bifida occulta. It's a less severe version.
yes, that is spina bifida occulta. I have had a friend that has that. Um, so in my situation, I have spina bifida hydrocephalus. 5 years ago, I have had a shunt replacement surgery, um, where my shunt had completely malfunctioned. I have had my shunt in for almost 40 years. So I had it changed before my 39th birthday, before my 40th birthday. Um, so that's my take on spina bifida. Um, any
I
questions
would
on?
also I would also like to add with about the shunt.
Uh
It does
huh.
not necessarily have to go to the abdomen. It can also go to the pleural space or even the heart. The
Yes.
shunt can go to three different places.
Yes.
Can I
Yes,
ask
it can.
what is the shunt mainly like used for? It's connected to your brain if I'm correct, right? Is it
Yes.
It
mainly used to like
is.
help act as like a
It
type of nerval cord that's extra?
No, what it does is it drains the CSF fluid because otherwise it just sits in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
Where
okay.
a normal person, the CSF fluid would just continue to drain and flow. In a spina bifida patient, the CSF does not flow.
Right.
So
Okay, that helps.
the shunt is there to help it flow. Like
Yes.
for instance, mine was on my right side, was in my pleural space. Mine now goes to my heart.
Yes. And mine is still in my brain. It's
Yeah,
always
well,
been like,
the shunt. I'm talking about the tube. I'm not talking about the shunt itself.
okay.
My shunt is
Is it
obviously
is
still
it
in my
scary?
brain.
Is it scary
It
knowing you have that inside of you and it can malfunction?
Not really. What
Mm-mm.
scares me the most is knowing if it malfunctions, I
Mm-hmm.
have to have surgery to fix it
Yes.
because I'm terrified of going into an OR.
Does spina bifida cause what is it called, scoliosis? Can
Yes,
spina
it can.
bifida ever cause scoliosis?
It
Yes.
actually does. I had 100-degree S curve in my spine. I had to have this surgery where they put rods in my back to bring it from a 100-degree S curve down to a 50-degree curve. And when I say S curve, I mean it literally made an S and then corkscrewed at the bottom.
Yeah.
And
I have had I have had shunts. I mean, not shunt. I'm sorry. I've had spina bifida surgery when I was really young, when I was just born. Well, not just born, maybe a couple of weeks after I was born. I
I had my back closure at a couple of hours old.
I was probably 3 weeks.
That was a couple of hours because mine was so bad. I have my myelomeningocele,
Yes.
which is the
Um,
most severe case you can have.
yes. Um, I had a spina bifida in my back, and they had to go in at 3 weeks old and have to remove it. So I've got a scar on my back, on the middle of my back, well, down below my back, right close to my tailbone.
I forget what mine was. I think it was uh, L3
Okay.
on the spine.
Right.
It was either L3 or T3. I can't remember which. I think it was
I can't
T3.
remember mine either.
But when I say that, I mean like thoracic, lumbar, for those that don't know what we're talking about. When we say
Right.
T3, L3, we're talking about thoracic spine, lumbar spine.
Right. Right. I knew what those are.
I know
which
you did, but
thoracic spine is like your body connected to your rib cage, and lumbar spine is below, connected to your tailbone. For anybody who
Right.
thank you.
doesn't know that.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's also
And sorry, Miss B.
no, go ahead, go ahead. Go ahead, Cap.
I was going to mention a lot of the disabilities that I talked about
Mm-hmm.
can be associated with spina bifida, like the depression and anxiety.
Exactly.
So you can see a lot of these disabilities can be interchanged or interconnected.
Right. You
And now
know,
for your second, what?
okay, so for years I would think to myself, I'm never gonna get into depression and never gonna be getting into anxiety, and here I am taking medication for it.
It doesn't have to happen right away for you to have a disability,
No.
especially a mental one.
Right.
Any comments, puppy?
Um, well, I agree with what you said about how disabilities are connected, because it is common for people with autism to have anxiety, and autophagia is common in people with anxiety.
Exactly. Exactly.
Uh, that's good. Yeah. Anyways, we're getting off topic. What was the other disability you wanted to talk about, Miss B?
Let's talk about CP.
And for those that
I
don't
will
know,
say
what
this.
is CP?
Okay. Hold on. Let me pull my info up.
What does CP stand for?
CP stands for cerebral palsy.
Huh.
Okay. Let me pull up my research I found.
Okay. While she's doing that, I'd like to mention that CP has a lot of different things with it. A lot of it is uncontrollable movements of the body, particularly the arms and legs.
Right. We, I'm sure, Puppy, you know some people with CP, but I found,
I actually I actually don't know anybody with CP, but I do know of a piece of media where the main character has CP. It's called Out of
Mm,
My Mind,
mm-hmm,
and it's a great book that they've turned into a movie. So,
I've heard of
um,
that.
yeah, if you're wondering for like a first person view into someone with CP's mind, I think that would be a good book to read.
right.
Nice.
Okay. So, um, cerebral palsy, which is CP, is a group of permanent neurological disorders affecting body movement, muscle tone, and posture caused by abnormal brain development or damage before, during, or shortly after birth. It is the most common physical disability in childhood, causing symptoms ranging from mild coordination issues to severe mobility limitations. Key aspects of cerebral palsy causes offers occurs due to brain damage, often before birth, from lack of oxygen, infections, genetic conditions, and structural brain malformations. Okay, the types of CP that are available are spastic CP is the most common type, 80% of cases causing stiff, tight muscles. Dyskinetic CP, characterized by uncontrollable, slow, or jerky movements. Ataxic affects balance and coordination, resulting in unsteady walking. Mixed CP involves symptoms from multiple types. Symptoms vary from person to person, including stiff muscles, spasticity, floppy muscles, hypotonia, difficulty walking, tremors, and challenges with speech or swallowing. What is the treatment, you ask? While not curable, therapies, medications, and sometimes surgery can improve muscle tone and quality of life. Key takeaways: non progressive. The brain injury does not worsen over time, but symptoms can change. Lifelong CP is a permanent condition, but with proper care. Many children lead active lives. Severity varies widely. Some individuals may need minimal support, while others require 24/7 care. Um, CP. I have several friends that have CP. One of my very best friends that I used to room with, used to stay in a group home with, has CP. She gets along extremely well. She has no issues, and I'm just totally amazed by her how she gets around with CP.
She's able to walk in a
She
walker.
is. She has a walker. She's able to get up and walk. Her and I can tell you right now, her and her husband will get up and walk around the apartment complex they live in. They walk around the gym. They walk around anywhere and everywhere you could think of.
I've seen them walk around Walmart a few times.
Exactly.
I just
I mean, it's great. And I'm going to mention another friend, which Cap and I know also personally. He's actually a best friend of Cap. Um, and he's also a best friend of mine. Um, Very nice guy, but he gets around really well. He does walk. He has a walker himself, but he has somebody walking with him as well.
I just
And
realized I do know someone with CP. I
okay.
just haven't talked with this person in a while, so I forgot about her. But I had a friend who had CP, and she was able to walk around with leg braces and canes and even go upstairs.
Nice.
Geez, that's amazing.
Yeah. We even took like a mile long walk to her house from our high school,
Okay.
which was
Damn.
it was awesome.
Dang.
In the middle of summer too.
Wow.
Hot much?
See, and let me say this before I end my session. It doesn't matter what disability you have. If you have that attitude where you can just go and do. Don't let anybody tell you any different. Cap and I are in wheelchairs. I mean, people can sit there and tell us that we can get up and walk. Um, this is our mode of walking. The wheels are the mode of walking. This is
Some
how we.
people, though, I will say, some people can get up and walk.
Some people
I
can.
used, I used to walk on crutches
Yes. So did I.
before my legs just got so weak I wasn't able to do anything.
Right. Now here I am still in a wheelchair, and I only have one leg. I've lost my leg 14 years ago, and that doesn't bother me. Living my life with a disability doesn't bother me at all. I get by the best way I know how to. I've
Hmm.
It's just me. It's just what I do in life.
It's I want to say it's important to know about disabilities, to be aware of them and the struggles that they cause people, but it's also not okay to treat people with disabilities different or like they're less than you. You should be you should be accommodating their needs, but you shouldn't be talking down on them or treating them like they're a child who can't do anything by themselves, because they can do things by themselves. And oftentimes people with disabilities are actually like so much more gumptious than other people because they've had to learn how to work with their disabilities in a world that doesn't accommodate themselves for those people with disabilities.
Exactly.
So they're
Yes.
more
And
resourceful.
one thing I would like to add is, for instance, my wheelchair or say someone's walker. If you see us struggling, don't just come up immediately and start helping. Ask first. We may not want your help. We may want to do it ourselves. And if you were to come up behind me and grab my handlebars of my chair, that's as if you're assaulting me.
Exactly.
Do not just come up and grab somebody's chair
Mm-mm.
or walker or cane or whatever and start helping. Ask first. Always ask. Because you never know how that person will react. For instance, I may just say, "Hey, don't touch my chair." Someone could be more violent and try to swing at you.
Exactly.
You never know.
Right. It's always good to ask a disabled person if they need help, not just go and grab,
And
because that tells
the,
them right there. That tells them right there that they're being assaulted.
now there is a difference between a handicapped person and a disabled person. A
Yeah.
handicapped person can do something with a handicap or a assistance. A disabled
Right.
person needs complete assistance in doing something,
Right.
but not everything.
Right.
So please do anything you would like to add, puppy.
Um, it's that Well, it's true not even just for people with physical disabilities, but for people with mental disabilities too. Like
Exactly.
something I need assistance with my ADHD is whenever I'm doing a task, it's much easier to stay focused and actually do that task and not have like task paralysis if I have somebody on the phone or in the room with me while I'm doing the task.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So body double.
Yeah, a body double. So
Okay.
that's a way that that rule is true for people with mental disabilities, because yes, obviously people with physical disabilities will need assistance in certain tasks. Not all tasks, certain tasks. That's the same with people with mental disabilities. They'll need assistance in certain tasks, not all tasks.
Right.
And the best way to find out if someone needs help, ask.
Ask.
Okay. Well, just tell y'all this, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, I'm gonna tell the story. I know which story. I know you know which story fixing to talk about.
Uh-huh.
There was a time when Cap and I went to a concert, and I was
Got
struggling to
that
get on.
one.
Yeah, I was struggling to get up. And these people, I didn't even ask for help. They were just like, "Oh, let me help you. Let me help you." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And I can just I can just tell you right now that it just did my heart a bit of good to know that there are some people out there that care about people like Cap and I. Yeah,
Now
they're
going off that same story, there are some that are not. For instance, at
mhm.
this same concert, the handicap section was at the back, and this is a standing concert, one floor.
That that sucks.
Yeah.
I had to I had to fight with the staff of the venue to get to the front of the group so that I could see me and Miss B could see the band we came to see.
Mhm.
And that's why
Because the
disability awareness
ADA was
is so important.
right.
Exactly.
The ADA section was in the back of the venue, and we were just like, "What the heck?"
While I admit they had an ADA, so they were following the ADA rule, they had it in a bad place.
Yes.
Especially since this was a standing venue. Anyways, I think this is what we're gonna call it. I
Okay.
want to thank I want to thank everyone that came to listen to us today. I'm Cap. This with me are Puppy and Miss
Hi.
B, and we're signing off.
Thank you guys
Bye-bye.
for listening in.
Bye.